All right, everybody. Hello and welcome to a performance-based question walkthrough for the A+ 1101 examination. Today, we have many different performance-based questions we can choose from, but we're going to choose one and we're going to work through a couple of the scenarios within that question. Going to get straight to it. Not going to waste any more time. Today, we are going to do motherboards, RAM, CPU, and power. We are going to focus on this exam objective. Troubleshooting is one of the primary exam objectives that people tend to have an issue with, largely because it's so complex. You don't know what issue you're going to get, and not only do you need to be able to identify what issue it is, but you need to be able to understand what's causing that issue and how to actually solve that issue. So we're going to go ahead and have a look at motherboards, RAM, CPU, and power and see what this performance-based question has in store for us today. Let's take a look. Okay, the question reads, you have been tasked with troubleshooting all issues on the 52nd floor of your building. Use the office layout below to visit each employee that has logged an issue and determine the cause of their symptom. Alrighty, let's go ahead and start with, let's go with this one over here. She looks like she's stressed out. Okay, I keep getting a BSOD. Why does this keep happening? We need to know what a BSOD is. It's simply a set of letters that represents blue screen of death. So a blue screen of death looks something like, if you zoom out so you can see it, looks something like that you can see there. It says your PC ran into a problem that it couldn't handle and now it needs to restart. You can search for the error online at there. So that gives you the error code there. Okay, so that is a blue screen of death. That's what we're dealing with. What is the most likely cause? Why does that keep happening? Is it an electrical failure? Not the most likely option. There's nothing that specifically points towards an electrical failure. We don't actually know what the issue is yet. A blue screen of death will often tell us what the issue is based on the code that it produces. So the next option says dependent on displayed error code. That is definitely it pretty much looks like that's going to be the option. That is the one, because the blue screen of death gives you a very specific error code, and that will tell you what the specific issue is. There's a wide multitude of reasons that you might get a blue screen of death, and until you actually have that error code, you're not going to know what the issue is. So at the moment, that's ranking number one for us. Let's keep going through the other options. Really important, particularly on these long form, multiple choice, performance-based kind of exams, that you don't just get the first answer that looks like it could be the answer. Take in all the answers and weigh them all up against one another. Don't just get really excited and click on the first one you think it's going to be. So, auto Windows update, that's not going to give you a blue screen of death. Loose component, nothing that points towards that. Overheating, that's going to cause intermittent shutdowns, right? If your computer overheats, it's going to turn itself off to save itself from overheating. So there's nothing about intermittent shutdowns, nothing about overheating. Issue with essential hardware. There certainly could be an issue with some hardware within the machine. If it was an issue with essential hardware, that's hardware that you really need to set up. I'm thinking you're probably going to see some sort of post. You're going to receive post beeps for that, right? The post test is going to fail. So hopefully that rings a bell. You know what the post test is. Faulty CMOS, nothing about that. That's, I think we'll look at that in the next question. None of these other options look like they're going to cause a blue screen of death. So we're going to go ahead and say, yes, this one, tick, we're correct. Have a look at the explanation. Feel free to pause and read that if you would like some additional information on the blue screen of death, but you essentially just need to know for your exam that that blue screen of death is going to give you an error code, and that error code will tell you what the problem is. Without having that error code, it's hard to tell what the issue is. Okay. Let's take a look at someone else. That's lady number one. What about this guy? He looks like he is freaking out. There is a very strong burning smell coming from my computer, but I haven't lit any matches in there. What is going on? Okay, so we've got electrical failure. Immediately, yes, if you've got a strong burning smell coming from inside, electrical failure should be one you're going to as to what the most likely cause is going to be. Dependent on displayed error code, nothing was said about any error code. Windows update isn't going to cause a burning smell unless it's a new, very, it's got like surround sound and it's trying to draw you into some sort of gaming experience. But no, that is not going to be the one. loose component. It could be that maybe the loose component is causing some friction and has like started a fire in the fan, but you're going to hear the sound of that loose component rattling around before you get any electrical failure. Sorry, not electrical failure. Before you get a burning smell coming from that. So loose component is not as likely, is not as correct as electrical failure. So far, electrical failure is still our number one answer. Overheating, that's going to cause intermittent shutdowns. For your exam, associate overheating with intermittent shutdowns. So, of course, a burning smell indicates some sort of fire. So that is going to cause a heat, but the most correct answer is still electrical failure as far as I'm concerned here, because overheating is directly associated with intermittent shutdowns, and the specific symptom we're looking at is a burning smell, which is associated with an electrical failure. Issue with essential hardware, you could consider many of the pieces of hardware within your device to be essential. Again, I'm associating that mostly with kind of post beeps, failing that post test. Essential hardware is hardware that you need for the computer to function. It won't even boot up without it, and I'm thinking post test for that one. So I'm still looking at electrical failure as the most likely culprit. Faulty CMOS, no. Hopefully we know what the CMOS is. Slow paging to disk is not going to cause burning smells. Physically damaged port, it will stop you from being able to charge, but it's not going to cause burning smell. Using the wrong port for the wrong protocol is not going to give you a burning smell. Incorrect channel use, no. A RAID drive has failed. You could probably technically think, well, if the RAID drive failed because it's on fire, then there'd be a burning smell, but it's still, if you have to stretch your imagination, you're probably looking at the wrong one. So electrical failure is going to be the correct one for that. Have a pause if you want to read the explanation there, but just make sure that, if there's a burning smell, you're looking at an electrical failure of some kind. And you should know what to do as well. This particular question didn't ask us what to do. Sometimes your performance-based question, they might be more simplistic than you expect. Sometimes they might be more complicated than you expect. So make sure you can identify that and you know what to do if you get it. All right, now let's go with this lady over here. She says, there is a grinding noise coming from inside my computer and it is very distracting. Okay, grinding noise, that's going to be the key there. There is a grinding noise. So we've already looked at electrical failure. There's nothing there that indicates it's going to be an electrical failure. Not dependent on an error code. There's no specific error code associated with a grinding noise. Before we even go through these options, actually, what we should be able to do is look at, okay, there's a grinding noise. Off the top of my head, without individually reading each of these, what do I remember that is associated with? Grinding noise, you're looking at something is loose in the machine. Maybe it's getting kicked around with the fan, by the fan. Maybe there's just something loose in there that's kind of rattling around. Or she could potentially also be referring to an issue with the hard drive as well. Okay, so we're going to have to think about what the most likely answer to that is. Probably either something's loose in there or something to do with the hard drive. So now we have a look and we see some things that line up with what we just thought. We have a loose component, issue with essential hardware, which is the hard drive. So that could be one as well. So we've got two competing possibilities here. RAID drive has failed. It could have failed because there's a grinding noise coming within it, which indicates an issue. But again, that's a bit of a stretch and it's not as clear of an answer as these two could be. So I'm going to eliminate that as an option. None of these. Okay, so none of those, only loose component or issue with essential hardware. So loose component seems like the most obvious and most clear answer. If it specified clicking noise, generally you can get a clicking noise from a failed or failing hard drive. That is very specific to the hard drive, but a grinding noise could be multiple things. And I feel as though loose component is the most likely answer, right? You could get any number of components could become loose and start rattling around, start grinding in there. So I'm going to go with loose component, and that is correct. So pause to have a read of that explanation if you feel like that is something you need to do. But just again, guys, the main thing from this is You see a symptom, try to be able to name what the issue is and think about what the most likely cause of that issue is. Okay, so we have a lot more people here we can investigate, but I'm going to keep this video short and sweet, so we'll leave it here. Hopefully you guys found this useful. If you want to get your hands on this performance-based questions simulation, you can grab it over at journeytocyber.com, and it will really help you kind of run through this and engage with some questions that aren't simply multiple choice. Actually clicking on buttons, trying to go to one screen, think of the answer, go to the other screen, answer it, right? You've got one for each of the primary troubleshooting objectives that require you to investigate and figure out what might be wrong and what to do about it. Printers is a big one. People often struggle with printers. So journeytocyber.com if you want to get your hands on that. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video.